uh, separator
Yes.
because it's a comma separated version. So that is how you will write it. So if you are reading CSV file, then you will copy the complete command like this. Just change the file name. Okay, here. Everything else will remain the same. You don't have to change even a word, even a letter after that. Just give your file name and then whatever. So here I'm giving the data name to be data R&D, but you
Yes.
can give it your own the name that you prefer. You can give that name uh, to the data. Is that okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Yes. Anything else? All right, so let us start. And what we were discussing, we had done up till the last class, and I have uploaded all the files on Moodle. If you have seen, I even uploaded the Excel file on which we had done our ABCR computation. So you can have a look at that. Also, I have uploaded the video of the last session, right? And this session also I'm recording, and maybe by tomorrow I will upload it on the shared drive. Okay, so you can have an access. So what we had done up till the last class, we had started to do our CFA runs. Okay, and we had explored the three factor structure of our construct leadership. Then we had varied some errors associated to items and improve the fit of our model. So these were the two changes that we had done. Okay, and then what we had done was we had computed CR and AVE for all these constructs, and we had assessed the discriminant validity using the AVE and R square formula, right? So let me just okay, so this is now the model that we are going to test, and we had completed the first test of our construct, which was this leadership with the three three first order factors, right? This is what we had done in the last class. And I had told you that when we create our measure, so up till now, what have we done? We have written the items of our measures, right? So we created a 10 item measure for leadership construct, and those 10 items were theoretically, we said that 3 items would be for EMP, 3 items for LEX, and 4 items for TO, right? That is what theoretically we had done, which was the part of content validity. Then what we did was we did exploratory factor analysis, where we tested the factor structure as captured by these 10 items. So that was where we got a first idea whether our items are, or how our items are loading onto the underlying factors. Then we move to another sample. I told you that we should not do EFA and CFA on the same sample. If you do EFA on one sample, you should do CFA on the other sample. So if you look at the paper that I have put my paper on this scale, what I had done was I had a data set of 584 responses, and I divided that sample into two parts. Okay, so another way, so rather than collecting data twice, one of the ways you can do this is you collect data in one go. Okay, and then so I had 584 data points. I divided the sample into two subsets. One sample was around 300 and another sample was 284.
Sir,
So I conducted EFA on one and then tested or validated that factor structure on the second sample. So that is another way that you can do this CFA and EFA. But the point that I'm trying to make here is, do not do EFA and CFA on the same sample. That is not right. You should ideally test it on two different samples. Okay. And then based on CFA, we compute CR and AVE and talk about the convergent validity. That means items load onto the same underlying factor. CR tells us whether there is good inter-item consistency, and AVE tells us on an average how much variance in the items is accounted for by the latent factor. So that is also something that we tested. And then AVE can also be used to test whether these three dimensions, EMP, TO, and LEX, are discriminant from each other or not. If they are not discriminant, then we will do a second order factor, which we did in the last class. So we had three first order factors, EMP, TO, and LEX, and one second order factor that we had done. So this is, up till now, what we are doing is we are limited ourselves, our analysis is on one construct. So we are looking at our 10 items, okay, and what are the properties of the items that we have developed. Now the last part I told you was we talked about convergent, and now in this class what we are going to do is we are going to take two constructs, any two constructs which we think would be theoretically, the literature tells us that they leadership would be theoretically related to PJ and leadership would be theoretically related to CPB. And now what we are going to do is we will test whether these constructs are discriminant from each other. That becomes again testing the discriminant validity of our measure. And then we will test the nomological validity, which is testing the paths or the structural model associated with these latent factors. And that is the final step of scale development, where you show through all these tests that your items are good measures of or good measure of your construct. So to do that, now we will do the CFA of PJ and CFA of CPB, and then we will bring them all together and test their discriminant validity. So let us start. And what we are going to do now is we will work with the second construct, which is procedural justice, right? PJ, that is our second construct. And so the first thing that I write is very, very simple. I just say that PJ is measured by PJ1. So I am at line number 139, which is measurement model of procedural justice. So my declaration of the model is very simple. I am just saying PJ is equal to tilde is measured by PJ1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so that is what we are doing, because if you see, PJ has 5 items, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? That is what we are going to do. So we will run this command. So I have declared the model. So I have now said PJ model is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then fit CFA. So I do my CFA run. Okay, so I have run CFA, and then I ask the tool to give me the summary of the result. Okay, I ask you to compute the degree of freedom of 5-factor model. This is the last time we will do it. If I give you a model like this is our PJ now. A warm-up exercise for everybody. Pick up your pens and take a paper and tell me what is the degree of freedom of this model.
5.
5. Okay, so 5 is one answer. Any other answer? What is the degree of freedom of this model?
Five.
5. Okay. So what did we write? We said degree of freedom is equal to k plus 1 divided by 2 minus hash theta, right? K for us is 5. So k plus 1 by 2 is 5 into 6 by 2, which is 50, right? And then we have to compute hash theta, which is hash fn hash cp hash ilfp plus hash SEB, right? So what is now hash theta for us? How many factor loadings?
4.
Four factor loadings. How many covariances?
0.
0. How many independent latent factor?
1.
One.
How many measurement errors? 1, 2,
5.
3, 4, 5. So 5. And how many structural errors?
No, 0.
At this time, there is no structural error. So what is hash theta is equal to? Hash theta is equal to 10. And so our degree of freedom is 15 minus 10, which is 5. Okay. And this is what the tool is telling us. The free parameters to be estimated is 10. Number of observations is 557. Okay. And then degree of freedom is 5. Our chi-square, you see, is quite large. It is 101. And the p-value is also less than 0.05. So we are actually seeing a situation where the tool is saying that our H0 is rejected, right? Which is not a good sign. CFI is less than 0.95. And then RMSEA is very large. It is not less than 0.05. So we have a problem with the fit of the model. And then these are our loadings, okay, that the tool has estimated. So now what I do is I have fit measures. These are the fit measures. And now I tell the tool, okay, Mr. Software, tell me what is your suggestion? What is the modification indices that you have? How can I improve the fit of my model? So the tool tells me, well, you see PJ4 and PJ5. If you covary the measurement errors associated with these two items, your modification index is 71. That means the chi-square will go down, will drop by 71. Okay. So if I have, it says PJ4 and PJ5, that means if I covary these two, my chi-square drops by 71. Because these are items of the same construct, same factor, it is reasonable to assume that their measurement errors may also be correlated. And so what I do is I declare a new description and I say Pj is equal to tilde Pj 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But now I also add another line. I say co-varying measurement errors. Pj4 co-varies with Pj5. This is what the tool had suggested. So now I run this model description. Okay, I do CFA and then I report the summary of the analysis. Now the number of parameters has gone up by 1. Why has it gone up by 1? Because our covariance now has increased to 1. It has gone to 1 instead of 0. So our theta has become 11, right? Our theta has become 11. And so our degree of freedom will go down by 1. And now you see what has happened to chi-square. Chi-square was 101 in the last run. It has gone down to 33 now. So 101 to 33 now. Degree of freedom, CFI has crossed 0.95. RMSEA is still quite high. It is still above 0.05. Okay. SRMR is good. And then these are our loadings. So I still need to check how can I improve the fit of my model. And so it says, okay, now I ask the tool again, what are the modification indices? And the tool says, well, covary PJ3 and PJ4. Okay, so now 3 and 4, that is what it says. 3 and 4. Okay. So I add another line here. I add PJ3 co-varies with PJ4. And now when I run this, I do CFA again. I do summary. So my number of parameters has gone up again by 1 because we have added one more covariance. Degree of freedom has gone down by 1 because it is because of the parameter going up. And now you see our p-value is just about reaching 0.05. Okay, it is reaching 0.05. CFI has become good. RMSEA is above. It is also close to 0.05 now. Okay, so if we want, we can stop here at this time and say, okay, we accept this fit. Else what we can do is we can check with the tool, is there any other suggestion that you make? Now, one thing that I want to highlight here is that you see in the last mod indices, I had given minimum value is equal to 10, but here I am changing it to 4. What does this mean? This means that show me all the path where the drop in chi-square, that means modification indices or index, will be greater than 4. Here I was telling the tool, show me all those paths where the drop in chi-square will be greater than 10. Okay, so this is, the norm is you should always look for chi-square, drop in chi-square greater than 4, not less than 4. So you should not have a value less than 4 here. I wrote 10 because anyways I wanted I will look only at the first path. So I want to reduce the number of outputs that the tool is going to show to me. So that is what I have done. If I change this line number 171, if I change this minimum value to 10 and run this, you will see the output here. It is telling that there is no output. That means there is no path in the model now, which if you add, the drop in chi-square will be greater than 10 because anyways your chi-square is sitting at 7. If you drop it by more than 10, it will become negative and that is not possible. So the tool is saying I have 0 rows. That means there is 0 suggestion here. Okay. So therefore I have changed it to 4. And now I am telling the tool, tell me what is the suggestion where the chi-square drop is 4 or more. 4 or more. And so now when I run this, the tool tells me if you covary PJ1 and PJ4, the drop in chi-square will be further 5.2. Okay. So again, I am seeing that this is 1 and 4. This is this is what the tool is telling me to covary. So I add another line and I say pj1 co-varies with pj4, and I run this model. Okay, and then I do CFA and summary. So now my number of parameters has gone further up by 1 because we have added 3 covariances now. So 10 plus 3, it has become 13. Now my chi-square has gone down from 7 point something to 2.8. Degree of freedom has become 2, and my p-value has crossed 0.05. It is greater than 0.05. So this is an excellent fit. And my CFI is 0.999. RMSEA has gone below 0.05, and SRMR is also doing very well. And if I run this fit measures, okay, I'm seeing all the results at one place. Okay. Now, one thing that I want to highlight here is if you see this model, what we have done is there something that you can see in this model which is standing out? Something in this model that should catch our attention. Now, what is happening here is that you see there is this item PJ4, whose error is co-varying with 5, with 3, with 1. That means this is perhaps an item which is performing poorly because it is co-varying with a lot of other items. Its measurement error is actually co-varying with a lot of items. So there is one common culprit here, because if this error term is associated with 3, with 5, and also with 1. Okay. So if you have something like this, and if you look at the loading of PJ4 here, PJ4 loading is okay, but all the other items are also loading pretty well. So if you have a case like this, and because we already had 5 items, right, we can go down to 4 items, because if you have 4 items, that is also okay. And because we have one common culprit, I can also explore what will happen if I were to drop this item from my item set. Rather than, so what would become the fit of my model if I drop PJ4 from my analysis, because I see that this item seems to be co-varying with, or its errors are related with other items. So now what I do is I simply write another model definition at line number 187. And what do I write? I simply say Pj is equal to tilt 1, P2, 3, and 5. Pj4 is gone now. Okay, I say, well, because I was seeing that Pj4 is common here. Okay, so I am dropping Pj4, and I want to see what happens to the fit of my model. And so when I run this, I declare the model, I do CFA, and then I do summary and the fit of my model. Okay. Now you see number of free parameters is 8, and without doing anything, the fit of my model comes to be exactly the same that we had obtained after co-varying all those 3. So you see 2.822, degree of freedom was 2, and the p-value that we were getting was 0.244, and which is, we were getting 0.244 in the previous run. We are also getting 0.244. So without doing anything, because we have pruned that item from our item set, in the first go itself, my clean model without co-varying anything, a clean model itself is giving me a very good fit with the data, right? So in my first run itself, I'm getting a absolutely clean fit, and my loadings are here. They are all quite good. As I can see, their standardized loadings are above 0.7. So that is a good indicator for us if the loadings are greater than 0.7, and my fit of the model is very good. Okay, so just by pruning one item, we are able to improve the fit of the model. So for my analysis, actually, I will go ahead and use this model rather than this more. This is also fine. It is not very complex, but if you compare the two, this is a better model. Okay, and 4 items is a good number for measuring a latent factor. Okay, so now we are done with the second factor, which is PJ, and we come to the last factor that we have, which is CPB, creativity, creative performance behaviors. Okay, it was having 6 items, 3 items of iGen, idea generation, iGen 1, 2, and 3, and 3 items of mobilizing support, MOBS 1, MOBS 2, and MOBS 3. So we write the description here. I say CB model, creative behavior model. CB is equal to tilde my 6 items. So CB is measured by iGen 1, 2, 3, MOBS 1, 2, 3, right? So that is our model description for the third factor. Very simply, I just run this. I do CFA again. Okay. And then I report the okay. So number of parameters is 12. Do you want to do this exercise once more? Degree of freedom, do it for 6 items. This is the last time. This is definitely the last time. After this, I'm not going to ask. Okay, so what will be the degree of freedom of a 6 item? Now you have 6 items. This is CPB. E1, E2, E3, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Degree of
9.
9. 9. So
Nine.
it is going to be 6 into 7 divided by 2 minus hash theta, and hash theta is going to be how many factor loadings? 5. How many covariances?
0.
0. How many latent factors?
1.
How many measurement errors?
6.
6. How many structural errors?
0.
0. Okay. So what is it going to be? 12. So degree of freedom is equal to 21 minus 12. This is 9. Okay. After this, you are on your own. So you can compute if you want what is the degree of freedom. If you understand this, you can compute degree of freedom of any model. Okay. If you just understand this simple equation. Okay. And so the tool is telling us the number of parameters to be estimated is 12. And therefore my degree of freedom of the model is 9. We are seeing again the chi-square seems to be high here. So we will have to improve the fit of the model. CFI is 0.91. Okay. RMSEA is also high, greater than 0.05, and SRMR is 0.06. The loadings are here. The loadings of the model are greater than 0.5, but they are less than 0.7. Okay, so just by looking at this, I can say that, well, my CR may pass, but my AVE condition that AVE should be greater than 0.5, that seems to be not holding for this construct, but it is not a very binding condition. But definitely just by looking at the loadings, I can say that AVE greater than 0.5 is not going to come out, and we will do this analysis in a while. Okay. So now
Sir, I have a quick question.
yes, Monica.
Sir, in the PJ, when we were dropping the item 4, we could have done Cronbach alpha and easily calculate that, drop this item to increase the reliability. Why we are doing all this like?
No,
We
so
could have done the alpha thing and find out that this item 4 is the culprit kind of a thing.
so when you are doing CFA, you don't do alpha anymore. Okay, alpha was done only when we were not estimating measurement models. Okay, when you are doing measurement models, there is no alpha here now. Alpha was done when, even before we had actually come to CFA.
Yeah,
Right?
I understand that, sir. But for just one particular factor, we could have done that, and initially, we could have found that this item is dropping our. Dropping this item would have increased our reliability.
Well,
Right?
you see, this kind of an issue may actually not come up through alpha also. Okay, because alpha is purely based on correlation.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay? Here we have identified measurement errors also. And we are saying that, well, measurement errors, which item is showing cross-loading in its measurement errors. That means the measurement errors are, that kind of analysis is not there at all in alpha. Okay, so this problem may not get caught in alpha. This kind of a pruning is only possible in CFA.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so now I ask the tool, Mr. Software, tell us what are your suggestions. So he starts with the first suggestion. It says that if you co-vary MOBS 2 and MOBS 3, okay. So if you co-vary, so this is MOBS 1, MOBS 2, MOBS 3, iGen 1, iGen 2, iGen 3, and so it says if you co-vary errors associated with MOBS 2 and MOBS 3, your chi-square will drop by 66. So we add this line MOBS 2 and MOBS 3 and run our model. Okay, and let us look at the fit of our model again. Number of parameters, it has gone up by 1, so from 12 it has become 13. Degree of freedom has gone down from 9 to 8 now. And the chi-square has dropped from 103 to 42. So we see a drop of about 61 in chi-square. But our p-value still seems to be low. Okay. CFI has gone beyond 0.95. RMSEA, well, it has come below 0.1, but it is still above 0.05. SRMR is okay. So we still need to check, is there a possibility to improve the model? So we ask the tool again, modification indices, tell us how can we improve? And so it says MOBS 1 and MOBS 3. So where is MOBS 1? And it says, well, co-vary the errors of these two items. So that is the next suggestion. And if you co-vary these, your chi-square will go down by about 18.9, right? So you will bring down the chi-square by 18.9. So I add another line and I say MOBS 1 co-varies with MOBS 3. The errors associated with these items are going to co-vary. I estimate this, I declare the model, run it, and report the summary of the model. And I see that my chi-square has gone down from 42, it has gone down to 24, right? So it is showing me a drop of about 18, which the tool had told. And my parameters have gone up by 1, degree of freedom has gone down by 1. P-value, it is starting to go up. It is still less than 0.05. And CFI is fine, but RMSEA is 0.06. So we can check one more time, is there a possibility to improve the fit of the model further here? And I check again, and now it tells me covary IGN 1 and IGN 2, and the drop in chi-square will be by 15. Where is IGN 1? It is here. Okay, it is here. So now I add the third statement, IGN 1 co-varies with IGN 2. That is it, and I run it and do the fit of my model and the fit measures. And now what happens is, you see the parameters has gone up again. Chi-square has gone down from 24, it has come down to 9.8. So about 15 points have been, it has dropped by 15 points. And my degree of freedom is 6. And my p-value crosses 0.05. Okay, everything else is perfect now. RMSEA, SRMR, and these are my item loadings, and the fit indices are this. Okay, and so this is where I finish my CFA runs. So I have now done the run for first factor, which is lead, CFA for PJ, and I have also finished my CFA run for the third factor.
So
Right?
I have a
Yes.
question on this.
Yes. Any questions now? Yes.
So I have a quick question on this factor. So when we see that the model is suggesting to us that there is covariance with that particular item mobs 3 2 times. So should we at that stage drop that item like you did last time?
Yes, you can drop it. We have the luxury of having 6 items in the model.
Mhm.
But why I did not drop it, because actually I know that these 3 items are measuring a specific aspect of CPB. So if
Mhm.
I drop, so I only have actually 3 items to talk about that characteristic of the construct. So that is why I did not drop. Unlike the last time where PJ we had 5 items to talk about only one thing.
Mm.
Okay? So there I dropped it, but here because I do not have many items to talk about, that is a call that I take, but you are absolutely free to take the call. You can even drop it and see what happens to your model. So for example, I'm just showing it to you. If you copy this model again and remove MOBS 3, right? So we take a call that because MOBS 3 is showing me cross correlations, I am dropping it, okay, and I'm just having this model, right? Now when I run this as my model declaration, and then I do fit and summary. I am assured that my model will pass. There is no question that the model is not going to pass. You see, it is close to 0.047, and yeah, so if I see what is the modification indices, it shows you will have to covary MOBS 1 and MOBS 2. So you will still have to introduce a correlation between MOBS 1 and MOBS 2, right? So see, these are all possible declarations, okay? How you want to define your model. You want to drop item, you want to keep them and have so if
So
I
it was guided by theory and also because it's not actually helping you get a better fit. So
yes,
both.
yes, so yeah, you will still have to add another error,
Understood, sir.
and then you will get the fit when you have added MOBS 1 with MOBS 2. So we call these as equivalent descriptions, okay? All these are equivalent descriptions of your model. It depends on which of these models is giving you a better fit and which is most parsimonious. That means you have to do minimum changes to your original model description. That is the model that you keep for yourself, right? So just keep this in mind, which model is closest to your original model description, which is the cleanest in terms of describing it, and that is the model that you should retain for your analysis.
Understood, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, so now the last thing so we have done these three separately. Now we have to bring all of them together and test the correlations between the latent factors, and then also test the paths, test the regressions between these latent factors. So now I declare an overall measurement model. So if you see, I have declared just after this CPB, I have declared a model which I call as measurement model. Okay. Now this is the overall measurement model where I am going to bring in all these three constructs together. Because I now want to test the correlations between these and check whether they are discriminant from each other or not, I bring these three constructs in the same model description, and I call this as measurement model. So I declare a measurement model. I give it a name M model, which stands for measurement model. So the first construct that we had was leadership. So I go to the top where I was doing my leadership construct, and I copy the final description that I had for leadership. So you see, this is exactly the same description that EMP is EMP 1, 2, 3. Lead by X is measured by LEX 1, 2, 3. Task orientation is measured by TO 1, 2, 3, 4. And lead, the second order factor, is measured by EMP, lead by example, and task orientation. The three first order factors. Then we had two covariant terms, TO1 with TO2 and LEX1 with LEX2. And that was my model description for lead. Now I come to the description of PJ. PJ for me was one line, PJ 1, 2, 3, and 5. That was a very simple description. And then I come to the CPB construct, which was CPB or CB is equal to tilt Eigen 1, 2, 3, MOBS 1, 2, 3. And then we had three co-varying terms, MOBS 2 with 3, 1 with 3, and Eigen 1 with 2. Is that okay? So we have brought the three factors together, and now we allow or we model the covariance between these latent factors. So what are the three latent factors? One is lead, one is PJ, and one is CB, right? So which is what we have? Lead here, PJ here, and CB here. Is that okay? Right? And so I say lead covaries with PJ, lead covaries with CB, and PJ covaries with CB. So this is my overall measurement model, right? And now I run the complete model. Okay.
So this file seems to have latent variable regressions also in it,
Yes.
but we're not going to use that.
No, we are going to use it when we are going to do nomological validity.
Okay.
That is the structural model. We will come to it. Okay. The next thing is testing these latent variable regression, which is essentially testing the nomological validity. Okay. Yes. So now I run this complete model. This is important. Everybody run this. Okay. Please run this, and you will see we have declared the full model here. Okay, and then the next line is the same, do CFA. Okay, CFA on measurement model, data is data R&D. So I run this line. Okay, and then I check the fit of the model first. And now I want to show you one thing, okay, before we go to the summary part. Now you see the fit of the model here shows that the chi-square is 252. The degree of freedom is 159. The p-value now is less than 0.001. But CFI is greater than 0.95. RMSEA is less than 0.05. SRMR is less than 0.05. And GFI is greater than 0.95. Okay. So now, if you remember in the last class, when I was talking to you about model fit, I was telling you that when it comes to fit of the model, we talk about chi-square, degree of freedom, and chi-square, its degree of freedom, chi-square, degree of freedom, and its p-value, right? Then the next thing that we talk about is chi-square by df, CFI, GFI, and RMSEA. These are the fit indices that we. What are the tests? We said that the p-value here should be greater than 0.05. Chi-square, we said it should be less than 3. CFI should be greater than 0.95, greater than 0.95, and less than 0.05, right? Now, in this case, we have got a case where our chi-square is 252 with degree of freedom, okay, chi-square for 159 degrees of freedom is 252, but its p-value is less than 0.001. Chi-square by df, if you do this, chi-square by df is 252 divided by 159, it is 1.0. 58. Okay, CFI is about 0.98. GFI is 0.96 and RMSEA is equal to 0.03. Okay, so now we have a case where our chi-square is not passing, but all the alternate fit indices are passing. And this will usually happen when you will have a complex model. Now you see what we have done is we have a large model here. We are estimating a lot of things. So chi-square test tends to fail when you are estimating complex models. So in that case, if your alternate fit indices are passing, that means your other fit indices are passing, you don't have to make any change. Okay, you should not stop at this point, and you should still report that my model, you should still write in the paper, the measurement model showed good fit with the data. So your model fit is good, and we will not really bother too much because our alternate fit indices are. The other thing that I want to demonstrate here is, if you will have, when you are doing your measurement models, okay, the best way is to check one construct at a time. So if you see, we did it in a very bottom up manner. We tested lead, we ensured that lead gives us good fit, that means it was fitting data well. Then we did PJ, then we did CB, right? And we ensured that all the models gave us good fit, and then we brought them all together in the measurement model. So if you do this way, okay, usually your measurement model will also pass. Even if the chi-square gives you not pass or fails, chi-square test fails, the alternate fit indices will pass when you are doing this overall measurement model. Is that okay? So always check one construct at a time. Working on standalone constructs is easier. You can prune them well, you can get a good fit, you can work on them, and then bring them all together and then estimate your overall model fit. Is that okay? Right, so we will go ahead and ask the tool to report the summary of the model. So now we have free parameters. Parameters to be estimated are so many. Chi-square is this much. Degree of freedom is this. CFI, RMSEA, SRMR. Okay. And then these are all the loadings that we have to see. And then we also have the correlations that we have. Now comes the point that we want to test whether these constructs are discriminant from each other or not. Lead that is measured through my measure, whether it is distinct from the other two constructs. So what I will do is I will open my file where I was working. I will open the Excel sheet, okay, where and now I'm going to open another sheet, and I will call it as discriminant validity, okay. And I will now, because I want to check the discriminant validity, so I will copy all these loadings, copy, and then paste. Okay, so I have pasted the loadings here. And then what is it that we said that day? We said data, okay, we will say text to columns, text to columns, and we will not touch anything here. We will just leave it as it is. So we will say fixed width, next, next again, and then finish. And now you see we have got our standardized loadings. This is what we have as our lambda. Okay, then we will do the same thing. We will insert 2 lines after every construct. Okay, and I will say this is my lambda square 1 minus lambda square one minus lambda square. Okay, and then I will have my AVE and CR that I want to compute, right? Okay, now when you are working with a second order construct and you will have to compute the AVE, remember we will only work with these loadings that are there with between second order to the first order latent factor. You don't need to work with all these loadings. So what are the loadings associated with the second order factor only? And those 3 loadings are the loading to EMP, loading to LEX, and loading to task orientation. So you will only work with the loadings that are associated with the second order latent factor. These are the loadings that are associated with the first order factors. So when we will compute AVE and CR, we will work with these loadings, okay? And so now what I do is I do lambda square, this multiplied with itself, and I copy it all the way to the bottom. Okay, and then what I do is I do 1 minus lambda square, right? Okay, so these are my lambda squares and 1 minus lambda squares. Okay, should we go ahead? Right, so now what is going to be the AVE of the latent?
Average of lambda squares.
Yes, yes. So that is going to be average of the 3 lambda squares. This is the, then for the PJ construct, it is going to be average of the 4 loadings, which are these. Okay, and then for CPB, it is going to be the average of the 6 loadings that we have here. Okay, now you see I told you that just by looking at the loadings of items of CB creativity construct, I told you that our AVE for CB is going to be less than 0.5. We said, well, ideally it should be greater than 0.5, but it is okay. Let us go ahead and compute the CR as well. So now how do we compute CR? Remember we said we will write sum and we will also compute sum square. So we will compute the sum of the loadings associated with lead. So this is going to be the sum of the loadings, and then sum square is going to be the square of this number. Similarly, we will also take the sum of 1 minus lambda square. Okay, and so now what is going to be my CR? CR is going to be sum of sum square, okay, divided by
Sum square plus
sum
minus
That's 1 minus, that's
of 1 minus lambda.
that's square.
This is something that we had done in the last class also. So our CR is going to be sum square divided by sum square plus sum of 1 minus lambda squares. And so my CR for lead is 0.87. Then I do the same thing. I would say sum and sum square. Sum of these four. This is the sum, and then the sum square is going to be the square of this number, and then sum of 1 minus lambda, okay, which is 1.41. And so what is going to be my CR? It is going to be sum square divided by
Sum square,
sum square plus,
1 minus this.
which is going to be again 0.87. Now we do the last one, which is our CB construct. So we again do sum and sum square. So what is the sum? Sum is this, and then sum square is this, and then what is the sum of 1 minus lambda squares? It is this. And so my CR is sum square divided by sum square plus this. Correct? So we have sum square divided by sum square plus sum of 1 minus lambda square. So this is the formula that we use for taking CR, and the CR comes out to be 0.81. So now we are seeing that CR test passes for all the three constructs. So we are okay with this, and we are saying anyways, even if ABE for CB seems to be less than 0.5, we are seeing that CR is greater than 0.7. So we have now tested ABE and CR, and now we are going to come to the discriminant validity testing. Okay, and now we have to test whether lead that we have measured is discriminant from PG
PJ,
and CPB. So we write our constructs lead, PJ and CB, and we say lead, PJ and CB. So this is the table that we are going to work with. Okay, this is the table, and I will copy these things again. Okay, so I am saying So what is the
AV
AV
6.69.
diagonal of on the diagonal of this matrix are the AV values. So what is the AV of lead? It is 0.69. What is the AV of PJ? Is this, and what is the AV of CB? It is 0.411. And I again format these cells and just report up to 2 decimal places. Okay, so I'm just reporting 2 decimal places here. And I will again color code these going by what is the color coding we followed in the last table. So yellow stands for the AV of constructs. Okay. Now below the diagonal, that is, these are going to be inter-construct correlation, right? And where do we find inter-construct correlation? We will find it in our output. So if you look at lead and PJ, you see, and we will look at the standardized output. So the lead and PJ output shows us that it is 0.536, right? The correlation is 0.536. So lead and PJ is 0.536. Then we go to lead and CB
345.
is 0.345. Okay, so the correlation between lead and CB is 0.345. So this is 0.345. And then what is the correlation between PJ and CB? It's 0.292. So this is 0.29. This is the correlation between PJ and CB. And we will give these as the color as, okay, which is inter-construct. Previously I had written inter-factor. Now it is sorry, I actually I should copy it again. Here in the last class I had written it is inter-factor correlation, and this was square of inter-factor correlation. Now we are saying it is inter-construct correlation. And now above the diagonal is going to be square of these. And then square of this. Okay, so this is our discriminant validity table. Okay, and now we write the discriminancy conditions. So what is the discriminancy conditions? Let us copy this here again. So what is our first discriminancy condition? It is LEX AV of lead should be greater than
the R of factor 1 and factor 2 and factor 1 and factor 3.
So it should be R square. AV should be greater than R square of
PJ
lead and PJ.
PJ.
Very good. Lead and
and lead and CB.
and R square of lead and
CB.
lead and CB. That is correct. Does this condition pass? 0.7 is greater than 0.29 is greater than 0.12. It passes. Then we go to the next one and we say AV of PJ should be greater than R square, the same condition, lead and
PJ.
and then R square of
PJ and CB.
CB, the two constructs with which it is correlated. Does this
Pass.
condition pass? Is
Pass.
0.65 is greater than 0.29 and 0.65 is greater than 0.09. So this condition passes. And then the last one is AV of
CB.
is greater than R square lead and CB
CB.
and R square
CBPJ.
A and CB. Does this condition pass? 0.41
Yes.
is greater
Yes.
than 0.12 and is greater than 0.09.
09.
This condition also passes. So now what we are saying here is that the construct that is measured by the scale I have constructed is discriminant from the other constructs. It is discriminant from PJ, it is discriminant from CB, which is also theoretically said, and therefore I have greater proof that my measure is a valid measure of the leadership construct, because theory tells me that leadership and PJ, they can be related, but they are not so related that they should overlap. That means they are not discriminant. So I am showing that there is some correlation. The correlation is there, 0.54, but I am also showing that my construct lead is discriminant from PJ, which is an evidence that the scale, the measure I have constructed is a credible measure of this construct. So you should believe the construct, that the measure that I have constructed for lead. Okay. Similarly, my construct is correlated with CB. There is correlation, but I am also showing that they are discriminant, which is also told by theory. And so you should believe that my construct is the scale that I have developed is a valid measure of my construct. Is that okay? How we test discriminancy, and this is how you will report it in your papers. So now the last thing that we tested convergent validity through AVE and CR. We have shown discriminancy, and now we come to the last step of testing the measure, which is testing the relationship, which is testing the nomological validity. The path. Up till now, we were only working with correlation. Now we are going to test these blue paths. Okay. So what are we going to do?
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I just wanted to ask that if each construct passed the chi-square individually, so it doesn't matter that it passed in the whole.
Does it matter means
like if probably you said that if they might pass individually, but when they combine because of too much of the constructs and the items, it might not pass. Like the value will come much.
Yes.
So when we'll report this in a paper, so do we report this part at the end that the chi-square, like the SCM chi-square, like the whole equation chi-square is this? Yeah, this one. Should we report this?
Yes, you will report it. See, you will, that is what I said, that you will write that the measurement model showed good fit with the data, and then you will report all these indexes. You will say chi-square with 159 was 252 and my p-value was less than 0.001. Then you will report your, I am writing it here because I cannot write it properly there. So I'm just saying in parenthesis, you will say the measurement model showed good fit with the data, and then you will write it as chi-square 159 is equal to 252, p less than 0.001, chi-square by df is equal to 1.58, CFI 0.98, GFI 0.96, and RMSEA 0.03. Is that okay? So you will not say that your chi-square is not passing, but the other are passing. You will simply say that the model shows good fit with the data,
Okay.
because your alternate fit indices are all passing.
Okay.
Is
Thank you.
that okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
As one doubt I have. Since the scale you have developed is for lead, correct? So during EFA, you have collected data only for this variables for which you intended to develop the scale. But it is during CFA that you have taken data for the other two parameters, other two constructs.
See, you can do it that way also, that you first collect data only for your measure, and then second you collect data for all the other variables. As I mentioned, I collected data for all the constructs in one go. So I collected the data for uh, leadership, PJ, CPB in one go. And then I divided, when I did EFA and CFA, I divided it into two parts, the sample.
Okay, sir. But in that case, my question is, you had mentioned during one of your earlier lectures that independence of the samples needs to be maintained. That
Yes.
the second
Yes.
time you take it, it's not supposed to be it's somewhat related to the sample from which you collected data the first time round. So how is that condition getting met here?
Which one? That the sample is the two.
Independent of the previous sample, yeah.
So you see, if you have collected 600 data point, okay, what you do is you divide it into two parts,
Okay.
because they are random. Okay, the elements in it's a random sampling, right? So if you divide a big random sample into two random samples, the independence of the two random samples is automatically established,
Okay.
right? So
Okay.
if you have collected data from 600 people in a random manner,
Yeah.
then you divide it into two parts. They're also divided randomly. So what I did was generated a random number, 0 and 1, for 600 rows. So that
Okay.
means I divided this 600 randomly into two parts.
Okay.
Okay. And
Okay.
so these are, you can now say that this is like collecting data two times.
Okay. Fine.
Three.
And then
Yeah.
to do the CFA, what means some people have told me is once you do EFA, you will end up with a certain number of factors.
Yes.
So it should be like the items loading on that factor multiplied by 10 should be the size of your second sample, right?
Well, ideally, well, conservatively, not ideally, conservatively, yes, it should
Okay.
be 10 times. But as I mentioned, that anything over and above 300, even 250 is something which is good, irrespective of how many items you have.
Okay.
Usually,
Okay. Fine.
if you are developing a scale,
Yeah.
your number of items in your measure will not be more than 30, 40 at the maximum, right? Number of items,
Yeah.
right? Because if you are developing a measure, you will not develop a very large measure unless you are measuring personality or something, right? Which nobody really develops scales for. So if you
Okay.
are developing scales, so your construct will have at the maximum 30 or 40 items for your construct for which you are developing the measure, right? So for 30, 40 items, a sample size of 250 to 300 should be very good. You don't have to, even 200, I would say, would be a good for a 30 item uh, measure.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Hmm?
Okay, sir. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, okay.
Sir, I have a question. It is related to this question only, the previous one. So you are working on a study which was basically related to the lead factor and
Yes,
the subfactors.
yes.
The PJ and CPB were not related to your study.
PJ and CB are not?
Are not part of your study. They are somebody else's study. But you have collected data on that also.
No,
Am I right?
no, PJ and CPB are also part of my study because I'm going to test these relationships also. The point is, I have not developed scales for PJ and CB. I have picked them from established literature.
Okay, okay.
Okay. So I have, in my study, I had lead, I had PJ, I had CPB also. Okay. So my survey had 3 constructs. And I collected data, but because lead was the scale I was developing, I used PJ and CPB as constructs to show or to demonstrate discriminant and nomological validity. Is that okay?
Sir, can
Yeah,
I
yeah.
add a question?
Yes.
Sir, is it possible that I do not collect the data for any construct? Still, I check the discriminant or, kind of like just to show in the paper that my scale or my uh, the construct that I made was very different from the other scale that a person has made, not on the basis of the data, just the scale.
Then you will have to only say theoretically, na?
Yeah, theoretically.
Theoretically, yeah, you can say, but you have to also prove. So if you read my first paper that I have loaded in the shared drive, uh, uh, I think we'll take a quick break for 10 minutes and then come back.
Okay.
But theoretically, yes. So you read that paper there. I have tried to say why this scale is different from other scale. Okay, which is your content validity part where you describe the content, the construct, and so on. Okay, but you will eventually have to collect data and show it. Right? People may not actually believe what you are saying.
Okay.
Sir, one question. So before we go for a break.
Very quickly. Yes.
So lead is because of task orientation and empowerment and the LES, that is. So that is a mediator kind of a thing. That is, we have to do a mediation. Is it leading? Because it is lead is defining these 3, and then
No. There is, see, remember, mediation comes only between different constructs. This is one construct.
Okay.
Right? These are dimensions of the construct. So when you talk about dimensions of the construct, there is no mediation. Mediation is between lead and CPB, and PJ acts as a. So
So that's
remember.
what we still do, because we really don't know the arrow is like which way. So
No. So that is why I said this is the red dot here, dotted line here represents the measurement model. So you don't talk about mediations in measurement models. Okay, we will call these as dimensions of the construct lead. Whereas mediation comes when we are testing structural models, when we are testing paths between latent factors. Is that okay? Yes, so remember, we never talk about mediation when we are talking about dimensionality of. Here we are testing dimensionality of the construct. Okay, so mediation is a very different question.
Sir, very short question one.
Yes.
How many generally construct is ideal?
How many?
Ideal means it is a 2 or 3 or construct.
No, your question is not clear.
Ma'am, sir, she is asking that how many how many constructs should be there ideally?
Is that
Means
what?
you have used sir 2 construct, 3 construct. Yeah, you have used 3 construct. So how many construct generally, like if I wanted to test in my research, suppose the 4 construct or a 5 construct. So how much generally in the research is ideal?
Well, there is no such thing as ideal. It all depends on how you are or what you are kind of doing, but maybe 3 to 4 constructs is good enough for your study. Yeah. I can't give you a number. You can see papers are with multiple constructs also, but think of having 3-4 constructs and then testing your relationships. But again, it is not the ideal thing, right? So
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So let's take a quick 10-minute break. Let us come back by 4:40 and then we'll do the last thing. We'll finish it. Okay.
Okay, sir.